Hi, I'm the Omnituts CEO, and welcome to the second part in this series of logo design. Today, as I mentioned before, we'll be covering the actual design. As you can see here, I've got open an emblem for just a random company. Now, there's no real name here, and it's not a complete logo, but I've noticed that most of the design that goes into logos is based on the emblem or the symbol. If any of you have text-based logos, we'll cover the design for them in another tutorial. But for now, we'll just focus on the emblem. So let's see the different parts of this logo, shall we say. First, there's a silver outline around here, which looks metallic. Second of all, we have this blue background, but it seems as if it's a sphere which is surrounded by the silver ring because of the bright spot here, which adds some lighting and contrast to our project. Next, we have these arrows, and they look like they're embedded into the sphere, and this really adds a nice 3D and 2D effect to our whole project. So let's just open up all of these layers and see what we've got. So as you can see, the first copy is the actual sphere, and behind it is the metallic texture. It's actually a gradient that, due to being covered by the sphere, looks realistic. So let's look at the properties for the actual metallic ring. Just double click on your layer and it'll open up the layer styles. Now from here we can of course add other settings, but we just want to see the settings that we already have. If I just go to gradient overlay, we can see that we've not really changed that many settings except that the style is reflected, and I have this really nice silver gradient going from the color 7E, 7E, 7E to D2, 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 and then it goes back to 7E, 7E, 7E. The last one was made specific. You can do it by either copying the hex code or just clicking on this, then holding Alt and dragging. You can also use this location box here to change the position of it on the gradient editor. If you like this gradient, you can save it, which is what I'm going to do now. I'm going to call this silver, actually metallic texture, and you can click save to save all of the gradients, but I'm just going to click new, and just like that it has been saved, and you can just double click on that to see the properties and a preview, and click cancel, and cancel. Now let's look at the properties for the sphere. At the end of this explanation, we're going to go ahead and make our own similar logo, but with a slightly different color scheme. I'm just going to click here, and we can see that instead of one blending option, we have two: a gradient overlay and an inner glow. The inner glow is what adds the inner shadow and makes it look as if it's a sphere inside a silver ring. Let's look at the gradient overlay first. All the properties are the same, except now it's a radial gradient, and scale is up to 140. I'm just going to double click here, and you can see that the color is going from a dark blue to a light blue. It goes from 003F67 to 399 4B2. Okay, and let's just save this to blue sphere. Actually, let's just call it sphere gradient. We can use this gradient later on when creating our own logo. Now let's look at the inner glow. Now, for those of you who are new to Photoshop, you might have used the inner shadow feature and noticed that it only goes in one direction. Inner glow allows you to enable a shadow that goes from all sides of your shape. Let's just take a look. By default, this won't be set to normal, but I find that realistic effects for more graphical and non-photo projects work best with normal. Opacity is 75, is okay. I keep a black gradient, black color actually, for my inner glow, because I find that even if it's slightly gray, I don't really get that kind of effect. The technique should be softer. The source should be edge, not center. Otherwise, you can see the inner glow is going from the center of the object outwards, which is not what you want. And this doesn't look like an inner glow that much. Now click edge. The choke can be 0 and the size can be 10. The contour is basically adding some more feel and texture to it, but we can leave that for now since we're not doing anything too advanced. And now you can just click OK. And you can see here, if I just release this, it looks more like a plain logo. And this is actually the key to making it more glowing and sphere-like. And actually, it's actually just a blue highlight that we can find the color of quite easily by using our color picker tool, which is right here. It's actually called the eyedropper tool in Photoshop terms. You can also access it by clicking I, and then you can come here and you can select it, and just like that, it's set as your foreground color. And we can see here that it's 66, F3, F7, and click OK. Now on the top here, I have a merged layer of my actual design for the logo. If I just check it, you'll see that it's made of paths because it's still a shape and it's not a rasterized editable layer. But still, that doesn't stop us from adding layer styles. Just double click, and you can see we've got a color overlay and an inner glow. Inner glows, as you might have noticed by now, are a very nice way to integrate objects into one another, and it's a really nice feature that I like. So the color overlay is just the light gray color EF, EF, EF. Click OK. And the inner glow is the same as the previous one with a size of 10 and a blending mode of normal, and of course it's black. Now that we've covered everything we need to know, let's start making our own. So go to File, and New. You can create the default Photoshop size, which is quite small, but let's just go with a custom size so we can really be in control of our logo. Let's just see the dimensions I use for our logo. This is called Awesome Logo. This will be provided in the project files, which can be downloaded from Omnituts.com. Now, from here, we can just click pixels to see what we're actually working with. As you can see, this is actually a really big logo. It's 1000 pixels by 1000 pixels, so you do not want to go around printing this because, well, it's not pretty. Let's just say that. I'm going to set this to transparent to have a plain background to work with, but I'm actually going to show you how to do it with white, so I can show you how to make a transparent background from locked white backgrounds. And everything else is fine. You can choose your size, but for this project, just make sure that the width and the height are the same so that we have a square shape to work with. So now click OK. And we've got this. But you might be wondering why I have this checkered background in the background, if that makes sense. Anyway, so if we come over here, you'll see that we have this lock, and it's written in italics, background. All you have to do is double click on the layer, and it'll ask you to make a new layer. This is basically the process it uses to unlock it. Of course, you can set default settings such as blending options and opacity. Just click OK. By default, it will be called layer 0. Now just create a new layer and delete this layer 0. Now you can see you have the same check background. Now let's start by creating a simple circle. We're going to use just a plain gray for now, but we're not going to change it from here just so that we have our color preset. So let's click Shift to keep in proportions, and this will help us draw a perfect circle. Just like that, we've created a perfect circle. To center this, click Command A on Mac and Control A on Windows, and you'll see a running dotted line around our composition. Now, using the selection tool, you can position it accordingly. To deselect, either go to Select, Deselect, or click Command D on Mac and Control D on Windows. Now we need to start adding our layer options or blending options. Now let's go to gradient overlay, and we'll apply the gradient that I've already saved. You can see it's right here, metallic texture. I'll just open up the hex code for you guys to see. 7E, 7E, 7E for the first one. D2, D2, D2 for the last one. And of course, I just made this last one by clicking the first one, then holding Alt and dragging to create a duplicate. For those of you who don't know, this technique can also be used to make many more objects in Cinema 4D and in Photoshop. Click OK. And we've got our first circle. Now hit Command J on Mac and Control J on Windows to duplicate this layer. Now hit Command T on Mac and Control T on Windows to enter transform mode. You can also do this by clicking Edit, Free Transform Path. If it wasn't a path, meaning a shape or a path drawn by the pen tool, it would just say Free Transform. Now you wanna go to one of the top right handles and just click Shift to keep it in proportions and Alt to resize from all four corners. But the important thing about this is that you keep this dot here in the center, because this is the anchor point and this is where all the transformations take place around. So just click Shift, Alt, and resize it so it's about this much, and then click the check mark. Now double click here, go to gradient overlay. We're not going to add our custom sphere gradient, but now to spice it up a bit, we're going to change this to red. So just drag the slider up to the red, and you'll see we get EB9393, and click OK. And over here, let's just drag this up to red as well, and you can see we get 6F3030. Click OK. Click OK. Change this to radial. Change this to 140. And click OK. Now you can see it's starting to look a bit like it, but not too much. Now we need to add our inner glow. So let's double click here again and go to inner glow. Now inner shadow, inner glow. Change the blend mode to normal from screen. Keep the opacity at 75 and change the color to black, which is 6 zeros for those of you who don't know. That's the X code. Now under size, change this to 10 and just click OK. Now you can see we're starting to get the whole feel of the logo. Now we need to add the highlight. The highlight we need to change to red first, otherwise it'll just look a bit weird. So click on this and change this to red. Now the highlight color for this would be F7 and then 4 sixes. So the full hex code is F76666, and just click OK. Now we're going to go to our brush tool and we're going to make a new layer. Now under your brush tool, you need to resize this based on your project size or your canvas size, and just increase your size by either using the size over here, and always keep the hardness at 0 when working with soft projects, and then you can just use the curvy bracket key to increase the brush size. You can also do this to increase the eraser size and other sizes. So this basically resizes it by 100 each time. So I think this should be set at 450 pixels, and that seems to do the trick. Now you don't need to really worry about right now where you're positioning your highlight. Just remember, just click once and we've got our highlight over here, and if you just click V, we can now position it where we want. Now this doesn't work like this yet, so just select it and then hit Command on Mac and Control on Windows, then click on this thumbnail for your ellipse 1 copy, which is basically the main gradiented circle in the middle. Now with this selected, click on these 2 pointers to center your thing. Now you see it doesn't really work properly, so you can either Command D and work with this yourself, and then position it correctly or make it accurately at the beginning, and then you will really have that many problems. Now the trick to making it look good is the blending mode. Now click this and click on overlay. Now overlay is really good for blending highlights and shadows together into one object. Now click on it and you'll see nothing much yet, but you can see it's much more intense here. As you can see, there's nothing else, it's just a plain overlay. Now you can change the settings of this by double clicking here, or double clicking here, going to color overlay, and then selecting this, and then using your eyedropper tool and selecting the foreground color from here. Now click OK, and you can make it more pinker or drag it towards the white to increase the brightness, and you can see you've got a better highlight. Or if you want to create a shadow, you can just do the opposite and drag it towards there. But I find that doesn't create that much of a nice effect, so I'm just going to take it back to here. Now this just creates a nice feel. If I uncheck it, you can see it's more smooth, but this makes it look a bit more 3D. So that's our basic shape done. Now we need to just create this these arrows here. Now this is where the actual design aspect comes in. You can access this by going to the custom shape tool, which you can access by dragging from any of the other shapes that you have. And from this menu right here, besides shape, you can choose from all the numerous shapes that are preloaded into Photoshop. You can access the full collection by clicking on this whole gear, and then you can select different categories. I just usually select all so that I have a full set to work with. Now as you can see, mine is the one right underneath the rabbit and next to the arrow. It's this one right here, basically. And as I mentioned before, I use the color EF for this. And yeah, so select your shape tool and just hold down shift and create the shape. Now we've got that done, we just need to duplicate it, but before we duplicate it, let's just add our layer style so we don't have to go through all that mess later. Now change your blend mode to normal, change this to black, and set the size to 10. I recommend making this a new style because if you're working with depth of field in Photoshop, this can be really useful when creating shadows. Now click OK, and we've got that done. Now just select your layer, and of course you can do Command J or Control J, or you can just go to Layer, Duplicate Layer, and click OK. The reason I use Command J is because one, it's quicker, and two, doesn't really ask for a confirmation, so if you're in a hasty project, you can deal with it easily. Now before I move any of these, I'm just going to hold down shift and select both of these shapes, then hit Command T on Mac and Control T on Windows to enter transform mode. Then I'm just going to rotate it slightly to fit it in. Now select OK, and I'm just going to select my top copy, which is the second copy of this. I'm going to hit Command T again, and I'm going to hold down shift so that it keeps in proportion, and it rotates it exactly so that these two are almost parallel. Now holding down shift will also keep proportions, but it will also give you power over how much and how intense you want your transform to be. So you can either just re-transform it, as the name implies, or you can hold down shift to keep proportions and angles and ratios all in order. Now you can just select these two shapes. Now hit Command or Mac and Control on Windows and select this ellipse, and then undo that, drag this into a folder, click and type shapes, and now you can do the whole command and control click thing and center these inside of this. And of course, now that the anchor point is into the middle, you can do Command T and hold down Shift Alt to resize it all from the center. So that's pretty much the design part of our logo done. In the last part of this tutorial series, we're going to be looking at exporting our logo and all the different formats we can use and for what purposes we use them. And lastly, we're going to be learning how to implement them into different websites, designs, and business cards, and so on and so on and so on. So I hope you guys really liked this tutorial. For more, go to Omnituts.com, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and subscribe to us on YouTube. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.